Hello and welcome to another episode of From No Crypto to No Crypto. It's the Crypto Coach, Blockchain Wayne, with another cryptocurrency podcast. Today's episode is brought to us by Blockchain Training Academy, helping to take cryptocurrency and blockchain education to the masses. In this podcast, we did an interview with Max Freeman of Epic Cash, so let's head on over and listen to that recording. Joined today by Max Freeman. Now, Max is the founder of Epic Cash. Epic Cash is a privacy-based cryptocurrency with a Mimblewimble protocol. We're going to talk more about that. It may sound like Greek to a bunch of you watching or listening, but let's jump right into it. Max, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Awesome, man. So first and foremost, being a founder of a crypto company, I always like to get some ideologies out of people I talk to in that space. So tell me your journey. How'd you get into crypto to begin with, and how'd you end up, with Epic Cash?
Sure. So it's important to note, you mentioned crypto company. There is no company, just like Bitcoin. We're an all volunteer group of individuals who form a community because we believe in this idea of a better money system. And so I came to crypto from hard money, or the traditional hard money before crypto existed, which is gold and silver. And I was attracted to the idea of a store of value that the supply couldn't be messed with. And also there's an attractive aspect to the supply function of crypto. Whereas if the price of gold went up a lot, then more gold would come onto the market. Or we could say that the supply is elastic in response to price in economics speak. But with crypto, you can't do that. And so I got involved in early 2017 and just completely fell in love and spent 16 hours a day learning everything I could on YouTube videos and devouring white papers and dipping a toe in trading in some of the wild west of the ICOs and the fun stuff back then. But when I realized that Mimblewimble was going to be a game changer for particularly not just privacy, but also scalability, because the blockchain doesn't grow with the size of transactions, it grows according to a different scaling function. If you can open up mobile money markets and download and store and validate the entire blockchain on a cheap smartphone without having to trust anybody, which is possible because the Mimblewimble chain is 1 gigabyte versus 280 for Bitcoin currently, then it opens up a lot of possibilities. So that's how I came to here, and it's been about little over 2 years now of really working on this. So that's how I got here.
Nice. So a lot of my listeners may have, heard me talk about Mimblewimble about a year and a half ago. Did a episode on Grin and Beam, and not really to, just not give me a comparison in what differentiates you, because that's how many people first hear of the Mimblewimble privacy protocol, right? So what differentiates Epic Cash from Grin and Beam?
Right. So we actually built off of Grin as our code base in open source. It makes sense to stand on the shoulders of giants and not reduplicate efforts if you don't have to. And so on a technical basis, Beam is written in C++, and Grin and our code are written in Rust. Rust is a newer language that's safer. And while Mimblewimble is a very safe protocol in comparison to something like Zcash, where the math is so complicated that you can have bugs go undetected for a long time, and hidden inflation problems and things we've seen in the zero knowledge way of approaching privacy. It just made sense to go with not only Mimblewimble but also Rust, which minimizes the scope for programmer error. So the biggest difference between the two or the three projects is that Grin has linear inflation of 60 coins per minute that never goes down. They don't have any halvings. And so while that technically gets to very low inflation and a better stock to flow ratio in 50 years or 100, the inflation is 1%. Until then, it's problematic, and the economics of how the miners get paid versus the holders, it's not a model that has been really successful in the market. And so we adopted what I call the Bitcoin standard emission of fixed supply of 21 million coins in the year 2140 and periodic halvings until then. So if you look at our supply curve versus that of Bitcoin, In the year 2028, which is 2 halvings from now, there will be about 18 point something million Bitcoin. And the supply of Epic goes from 0 when we launched last year. We had a fair launch with no ICO or pre-mine, no investors. It's just true to the roots of how to structure a community effort based on volunteers. The supply of Epic will be 18 point whatever million to match Bitcoin exactly. And then they stay in sync for the next 112 years. So there are some other structural differences, but the main one is also that Epic uses a multi-algorithm mining setup, so that you can mine. You can download the miner on Epic and run it on an old laptop in 5 minutes if you're sufficiently handy, because we use the RandomX algorithm for CPUs. We use ProgPow for GPUs, and then the Cuckoo cycle for ASICs, and they all operate in parallel so that they don't compete with each other. So we're able to divide up the block rewards between different hardware types to let more people mine than otherwise would be the case. Beam is primarily GPU mined, and the product plan of Grin was to be ASIC mined. But the low price of the coin hasn't really made the math pencil out for people to spend $5 or $10 million taping out a semiconductor to do an ASIC. So that's a little bit in question. But they're both great projects, and we've learned a lot from them. We just think we have a different approach of how to build what the world needs.
Nice. So, and you said you can mine it on pretty much any device. I know there's been some talk, and this is what I've heard. I haven't really had a chance to ask you yet about this, but is there a plan for like a true mobile miner?
Exactly. Yeah, that's really, really exciting. In contrast to so many other projects out there that have announcements about pre-announcements of a potential announcement, I mean, we've all seen the worst offenders of that shall go unmentioned. When we launched the white paper, the chain was already done, and it didn't require any trust. I mean, not only were we not asking for any investment, we said, okay, everything that's in the white paper as far as promised features and functionality has to be there at the time that it launches, because that's how Bitcoin did it. Anything else, it's just people are skeptical, and rightfully so in today's market. So with the mobile mining, we're not making a big deal of explaining about it. I mean, whoever sees this will know. But aside from that, we're just going to do it and then release it to the market. The beauty of the multi-algorithm setup is that we can just hot swap additional ones in there. And a lot of the code already exists to adapt RandomX, which currently runs on AMD and Intel processors, to the ARM chipset that runs most of the mobile devices. So the design choices that we made gave us a lot of flexibility in how we make the most of this clean sheet architecture. And it also fits really well for the mobile first strategy, because the chain is only 1.02 gigs right now, and it grows very, very slowly. It can actually get smaller over time, because Mimblewimble uses a feature known as cut through, where essentially every transaction in a block is one giant coin join, and then further down the road, the blocks will be able. You can actually compress the data across blocks, so we might see it get down even quite a bit below that. So there's a lot of opportunities that come from the unique advantages of the Mimblewimble protocol itself, that while we didn't invent it, we certainly are keen to the potential benefits of making the most of it. And so people think they know what Mimblewimble is all about because they studied Grin and Beam, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. So we're really excited about 2021, and a bunch of the exciting stuff will start to come this year as well. No promises.
Nice. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, definitely been an industry plagued with announcements. So but a lot of what I did is I reached out to some of the students in our program and asked them, hey, what questions would you have? That was one of the ones that popped up the most, was about that. Some people have been following the project, wanting to know about that. The other question I got from quite a bit of people is, why the name Epic Cash? How did that come about?
Sure. So, for the geeks among us, they might be familiar with GNU Linux, which stands for GNU. I may be mispronouncing that, not Unix. So it's a little bit of a recursive wordplay for geeks. And so we came up with a similar concept where EPIC stands for Epic Private Internet Cache. So it kind of recursively folds back on itself. And it also helps that it's short, easy to spell, internationally applicable. And even though tween-age girls overused it in the past 5 years, it fundamentally has a positive association. And that word meaning goes back thousands of years to stuff like the epic, the Norse poems, and also the Epic of Gilgamesh. And so it's not for everybody, but it appeals on multiple levels. And I like to joke that all the good names were taken, so that made it easy.
Yeah, you had to kind of figure that out. So I guess my next question is centered around privacy coins in general, right? I'm a big fan of privacy coins. I'm sure you and I both understand that privacy is more important than people realize. So what do you see as some of the hurdles going forward with privacy coins as we move into more adoption of crypto?
I think that the problems for adoption in crypto will come from coins that don't offer privacy, specifically. Whereas privacy coins get a bad rap because, oh, it's the money for terrorists and drug dealers and child pornographers and bad guys. Well, the US dollar is the most widely used tool of criminality. And as we've seen with institutions in the legacy banking system, like the HSBC Bank, which I call the Hong Kong and Shanghai banking criminals, they get busted every year or two for laundering tens of billions of Mexican cartel money and just share the profits with the government. And that makes it okay. So the whole complex of AML and KYC doesn't serve its stated purpose. It mainly just excludes people from if you're undocumented, if you're from a place where you may not live within the reach of traditional banking, you're just frozen out. And so that's really inexcusable in a world where the technology exists to download an app on your smartphone and have access to the modern financial system, not to mention all the exciting stuff around DeFi that's happening. There's no reason not to connect 3 billion or so, depending on how you calculate it, people to the global financial system, because commerce and trade are the cornerstones of wealth, and payments are the fundamental building block of trade. So whereas privacy could be seen as controversial by some, fungibility is not. And fungibility is an essential property for money to be maximally useful. And as we've seen with not just stolen Bitcoin or hacked Bitcoin or darknet Bitcoin or coin-joined mixer Bitcoin getting censored by companies like Binance, who last November attracted a lot of press for censoring withdrawals to a user's Wasabi wallet. Chainalysis and know your transaction technology in real time has gotten very sophisticated. And as we saw with Coinbase, they blocked 280,000 people from sending Bitcoin to the Twitter scammers last week, which you say is great. But we're getting really back into a paradigm of it's not your money. If Coinbase can decide, or anyone else can decide what you can do with it, whether it's censorship or confiscation, not your keys, not your crypto. And so there's a whole host of not controversial use cases where if you don't have privacy, it's just not going to work. And so I think that the advantages of having privacy for individuals make all the sense in the world, and the real onus or burden should be on our public institutions. Their spending should be transparent and tracked and traced and exposed to the world. But people don't realize with blockchain, every transaction you do is publicly and permanently posted to an immutable ledger. And when we say that, if you think about a simple thought experiment, you ask somebody, would you post your bank account statement or credit card statement to Facebook and Twitter till the end of time? They look at you like you're crazy. But that's what people are doing in transparent crypto. And so I think that fungibility will be kind of the point of the wedge that awakens people to the importance of privacy. Because if you don't have privacy at the base layer of the protocol, optional privacy doesn't do it. The way Litecoin is doing it with the extension blocks doesn't do it. Unless it's always on permanent privacy for all transactions all the time, you don't have fungibility, and that just limits the utility for this as a politically neutral money technology for all of us. So I know that's a lot, but those are some of my thoughts on privacy and why it's important.
Yeah, no, that's some great points. I mean, yeah, the thing with Coinbase is a slippery slope because, yeah, they did protect some people, but at what cost in the future will that happen again, or maybe when it's not as clear and cut as far as being able to block transactions? So you gave some great points of why people would need privacy, right? So what about businesses, right? How do you feel businesses should look at this, and should businesses be interested in a privacy-based cryptocurrency?
Sure. Well, having been a small business owner and builder for the past 20 years before getting into crypto, it's just a non-starter to publicly expose your financial ledger to the world. I don't even know where to start with all the problems, but competitors can know your customers and their spending patterns, trace your supply chain, where the money goes and to whom and who gets it afterwards. Employees knowing what others get paid. There's some organizations that have open books as far as employee compensation, but most of the time it's just a bad idea to do that for a variety of reasons. And so I think that until there are viable cryptocurrency chains that have not only base layer privacy like we do, but also optional auditability on top for the business use cases, which you can do through stuff like view keys. Beam is definitely a functionality leader in that respect, whereas we're going to wait till there's sufficient business demand to devote engineering resources to it. I think it's an absolute essential prerequisite for the viability of crypto to go beyond a few percentage points of market relevance to something wider.
Yeah, and really, kind of, so basically what you've talked about, I mean, private companies and people, we basically need to invert the current structure, right? Because right now, charities and government and financial institutions, they have private transactions, but we don't as people, and
Right.
businesses don't. So need to kind of invert that technology. I'm a big fan of Andreas Antonopoulos and a lot of what he talks about. And that's one thing he talks a lot about is inverted technology, where we invert infrastructures,
Well, and also these people have been proven to not be trustworthy. I mean,
Exactly.
like we're in the United States, which is seen to be a relatively corruption-free country. But let's go to the other end of the spectrum. I mean, if you're in Venezuela or Argentina, I mean, in Argentina, if they can see it, they're going to take it. And so if you have your wealth in Bitcoin, they're going to want 2.25% of that every year, and the option of peaceful, nonviolent resistance to that predation, which the money's going to be taken and not used for roads and schools, but stolen and wasted. I mean, don't even get me started on Africa. When money is politicized, whether it's Operation Choke Point or the WikiLeaks banking blockade, there's additional friction, and there are costs to us as a society, and also it has important implications for the preservation of what's left of our little freedoms. You asked about the motivation of why we're doing what we're doing, and it really returns to the roots of the cypherpunk ethos that existed in the very early days of crypto. I think if Satoshi had started 10 years later, he would have started with Mimblewimble. And that's why we look at Bitcoin as 99% perfect, and we only tweak the couple key things that weren't perfect, which because of the SHA-256 algorithm, the mining is only open to people that can afford the latest expensive gear, and it's also geopolitically concentrated. So it's better to let anyone share in the rewards of mining, and also the base layer privacy that gives you the optional transparency when it's appropriate.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I definitely love that. So you can have a truly decentralized network that also gives people equal access. So whether you're on a CPU, GPU, so I definitely like like a lot of the points there. Um, and we've gone all into this, and it's been a while since I've talked about Mimblewimble. So just kind of maybe we should back up for a second and kind of explain what to the listeners, what does Mimblewimble do as far as how does that technology work in creating privacy?
So I imagine most listeners or viewers at this point will be familiar with the idea of a coin join, where the transactions are mixed together, which makes it harder. You can think of it as unscrambling the egg. Once the egg has been scrambled, you can't put it back into the constituent eggs. And so earlier approaches like Dash used master nodes to have optional mixing as a separate step. The way Mimblewimble works is that essentially every transaction in a block is mixed together in one giant coin join, and it uses a concept called cut through, where if I send you one epic and you send it, if I send you one epic and you send it to Alice, and Alice sends it to Bob, and so on, it just eliminates all of the intermediate transactions, and it says, okay, you all just transferred one to each other, and I transferred one, and it ended up here. So we're just going to eliminate all that and record this as the net one change here and positive one change over there. So cut through and coin join are the core. There's also another privacy technology called Dandelion, where when the wallet generates a transaction, an interesting point that in Mimblewimble there are no addresses. All transactions are constructed interactively on a P2P basis between wallets. So when the two wallets talk, and that's something that currently requires users to be online, but that's something we are committed to doing, is making it easy so that the requirement for interactivity isn't there anymore. Sorry, lost my train of thought. Somebody distracted me here. So when the wallet generates the transaction, instead of the first node that gets it committing it to the mempool, it bounces it around on average 10 times. So you send the transaction in Texas, and then it ends up on the other side of the world 10 hops later and gets committed to the blockchain. And what that does is it prevents de-anonymizing based on sniffer nodes. The way they actually tracked Ross Ulbricht, as an interesting piece of trivia, was by putting a web of nodes closer and closer and closer to his physical location. And so with Dandelion, that type of de-anonymization vector is no longer there. So those are the three cornerstones of Mimblewimble: cut through, coin join, and Dandelion, or Dandelion plus rather.
Gotcha. Nice. So Epic Cash right now. Another question I got quite a bit from a few of our students was asking about a mobile wallet as far as to store it. So where currently can someone store Epic Cash, whether they mine it, receive it?
There's a great great little DEX that is available worldwide with no KYC, called Vitex, and they have an app called the Vite VITE app, or Vite Wallet app, on both Apple and Android. And so there's videos online, tutorials, and other content from our community. If you download the Vite Wallet, add Epic 001 to your coin list there, and buy or have somebody send it to you there. It's a fully fledged mobile experience. So our own native mobile app will come out later this year, and we're pretty excited about that. But for right now, the sort of mobile box is checked through the fact that we trade on Vitex.
Nice, nice. Are you on any other exchanges other than Vitex right now?
Yeah, there's another one out of Asia that's centralized called Citex, Citex, and there's no relation between the two other than a slight overlap in the names. And it's pretty obscure, but it's a decent exchange. Nobody's reported any problems with it. But what we just did that's pretty interesting is I'm sure most of the listeners are familiar with the concept of wrapped Bitcoin or WBTC. There's actually more wrapped Bitcoin that is locked into smart contracts on Ethereum that's trading as an ERC20 token than there is actual Bitcoin locked in the Lightning nodes as a layer two on Bitcoin. And so the DeFi explosion shows the market demand in the Ethereum ecosystem. And so we cribbed a page out of the WBTC playbook and just did an experiment of setting aside some tokens, creating or setting aside some coins and creating tokens on a one-to-one basis so that it's non-inflationary. And we posted those on Uniswap as a liquidity pool, so anyone can come in and earn a share of the trading fees that come off of that directly through Uniswap. And so we did it as an experiment. We weren't sure if anybody was going to care. And the response has really been enthusiastic. The Uniswap pair has consistently traded over and above what the other two exchanges do. And I think that's partly about the convenience of the Uniswap user experience. And so we're opening that up as a phase two to people in our community who want to participate in what we're calling liquidity mining to earn a staking-like passive income stream through the Uniswap fees structure and lock up their coins in exchange for tokens. And then the next step beyond that is to expose a truly trustless and decentralized smart contract-based facility that anyone can interact with to exchange back and forth between the coins and tokens. And so that really is something that bears mention because our vision is not to just have a standalone blockchain that is really cool because we think we're moving to an interconnected world where all of these blockchains talk to each other, and you can do that in a trustless way based on atomic swaps. Technology isn't quite there yet. It's a little clunky compared to the centralized trading experiences, but it'll get better with time. And so again, removing the ability for anyone to censor your transaction or block or track and trace. The idea of private assets on the whole DeFi infrastructure that's exploding, not just on Ethereum, but other chains is really, really exciting. And so Epic will live as a cross-chain asset across not just its own blockchain, but other smart contract platforms as well.
All right, nice. Yeah, and a lot of people might be wondering, hey, why is Epic not on multiple exchanges? But you and I probably both know. I mean, that's kind of a rigged game right now, right, with exchanges.
Well, I mean, there's 5,000 other shitcoins out there that raise VC money, and the first thing they do is go and pay a listing fee to this exchange and that exchange. And to be a truly organic community project that has to do everything based on volunteers and individual contributions, it's just a conversation that it doesn't really work because we're such a black swan that they're used to evaluating it through the lens of, oh, okay, you raised $4 million. I'm going to charge you 100,000 or whatever. I mean, even it's just obscene. Names that you wouldn't want to trade on are asking hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they're getting it too, because as we saw in 2017, every exchange listing pumps the price, and then even now today, depending on which exchange you list on, people talk about the BitMax effect. Okay, well, to get that pump of listing on their particular exchange, and not to single them out, I think they're great, but it's just the economics are kind of stacked against you, and so we're committed to, as an investor, and so we're committed to an organic route of building up community, building up not artificially inflated liquidity and volumes, and with the organic growth of the project, the range of exchange transaction points will naturally grow. I don't think there's any value to be listed on a slightly less junky exchange and then work up to the next one, when we can do innovative stuff like creating the wrap tokens on Uniswap and some of the other Balancer and Curve and Compound and Synthetics and Ren. There's just a way to substitute creativity and intellectual capital for financial capital, and that if you build it, they will come. And so at the end of the day, exchanges want trading fees, and if there's a valuable network here that users want to participate in and transact with, then they'll find a way to add us.
Nice. Yeah, I always tell people if Satoshi was creating Bitcoin today, he would struggle to get it listed on many exchanges, right?
Yeah, not without paying his pound of flesh, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
so,
all of the community contests as well. Those are kind of rigged games and shams as well. I mean, there's a whole industry of specialized providers that if you want to win XYZ trading competition, and you see that it got thousands of votes for something that nobody has heard of last week. I mean, it's increasingly farcical.
Yep, it's a rigged game. So, all right, Max. So as we wrap up, and I'll drop some links when this video posts and when the podcast posts. But tell people, where can they connect to get more information about Epic and what you guys are doing?
There's a site up at epic.tech. The white paper is actually up in over 20 languages, not machine translated. We had individual community volunteers do that, and there's a tremendous amount of other content up there as well. So epic.tech is a great place to start, and then I would encourage people who are interested to join our Telegram, which is just Epic Cash. And then there's different language ones and one for mining. There's a bridge between our Discord and our Telegram, so the messages automatically pass back and forth. That's one of the things that I'm personally most proud of, is the strength of the community that we've built. A lot of these other projects are fairly hostile to newcomers. If you need help to get started mining, or not sure how to navigate the Mimblewimble technology at any time of day, there's friendly people there waiting to help out. And so that's really something special as well, that I would encourage everybody to check out if you're interested.
All right, awesome. Well, man, I really appreciate it. I'm kind of winning me over when it comes to Epic. I've had a few friends that have been talking about it for a while. Haven't really looked much into it up until recently. So definitely something that I personally going to be digging more into. I'm a big believer in a lot of the principles behind privacy being a fundamental right for everybody. So, man, I appreciate the time today. Appreciate the information, the education. Any final thoughts before we go?
No, just if anybody wants some free coins, just post your Vite wallet address in the comments, and I'll check back. If I forget, just let me know. But Brock Pierce actually played a great role in the spread of Bitcoin in the early days by putting a few coins on USB sticks and sprinkling them in the parking lot outside of Burning Man, I think it was, or maybe South by Southwest. And so we're doing the same kind of thing here. If anybody wants a couple free coins to get started, just drop a link, and then we're going to extend that concept with a Twitter faucet here pretty soon, where you'll be able to get a little drip feed of coins right through Twitter. So yeah, it's been great to be here. Thank you, Wayne. Hope to be back on at some point. Man,
I love that. I love that analogy with Brock Pierce, and even Andreas will say, we need to airdrop this, on hardware wallets just across the world. So I think that is more important than exchange listings and being traded on an exchange. So awesome work that you guys are doing. Definitely looking forward to catching up in the future and seeing what's going on with the project. Don't forget to take him up on his offer as well. I mean, who doesn't like free crypto, right? Free money, free cash, and it's private, right? So Make sure you follow the steps there. Put your address to your wallet in the comments here, wherever you're watching it. I'll be sure and forward that over to Max, since we're going to post this in a few places. So again, Max, thanks for joining us.
Right on. Good to be here. Thanks.
All right. And everyone, thank you for listening and watching, and we will catch you on the next episode. Take care.